Now, let's talk about, without a doubt, the biggest news article from yesterday in the after hours and then overnight. This is not only affecting Apple and Google specifically, but this is also weighing on the rest of tech here. Alphabet stock hits a new all-time high after the judge issues a ruling in the antitrust case. What happened here? U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta on Tuesday ruled Google will not be required to divest its Android operating system or sell off Google Chrome. That's per Reuters. Quote, Google will not be required to divest Chrome, nor will the court include a contingent divestiture of the Android operating system in the final judgment. Plaintiffs' overreach is seeking forced divestiture of these key assets, Mehta wrote in the decision. The ruling comes after a 5-year legal battle between Alphabet and the U.S., in which district judge ruled last year that Google had an illegal monopoly in its search business. Apple, on the other hand, Apple shares were also moving higher in extended trading, last up about 3.7%. Apple holding 238 here, actually traded above 239 briefly this morning, and is looking to make a run at that 240. Apple was last up 3.7% after Meta ruled that Google will not have to cease payments to Apple for preloading Google products. So I don't think we expect any change there. The positive rulings appear to be overshadowing a ruling that Google will now have to share data with competitors to create more room for competition in online search. The company previously said it would appeal such a ruling, as Google believes it would allow competitors to reverse engineer its technology. So this, to me, is the interesting part of the whole story here. They don't have to stop this right now. They don't have to get rid of Chrome. They don't have to get rid of Android. That makes a lot of sense to me. They do have to share some information here, so it'll be very curious to see if there's any ground made up or if there are any other search methods that end up rivaling Google search. We'll see how this all shakes out here. Google stock not really caring about that here today, as that was trading up over 7% earlier today. Now, you know, Jim Cramer had an opinion on this. CNBC's Jim Cramer launched a fiery defense of Apple on Wednesday, claiming a pivotal U.S. court ruling has fundamentally reshaped the tech giant's artificial intelligence strategy, allowing it to get paid for AI rather than funding an expensive catch-up. Interesting. In a series of posts on social media platform X, Cramer blasted naysayers and argued that Wall Street is failing to grasp the, quote, incredible importance, end quote, of the development of Apple's future. Cramer argues that Apple, long criticized for lagging in the AI race, no longer needs to spend a fortune to compete. Instead, he contends a major AI player like Google will now pay Apple billions to integrate its technology, like Gemini, into Apple's vast ecosystem. Now, let me pause right there, because we've all been talking about how Apple really isn't innovating like they used to. It's one of the big drawbacks for those that want to buy and hold stock, despite the fact that their balance sheet is a fortress, and they've basically turned the iPhone into a service as opposed to a piece of hardware. All of that aside here, I don't think this is what people wanted from Apple when they talked about them getting into AI. I'm not sure how great it is that Apple's AI angle is simply getting paid to use it from Google. I suspect that what Apple would rather do is create their own AI system that integrates with Siri in a way that no competitors can match. I'm not sure this is the end game here, but this to me is an interesting angle to take on this. Quote, instead of buying AI, it will have a rich company pay IT to take that company's AI, Cramer stated, adding that this negates fears of Apple writing a $200 billion check to NVIDIA for infrastructure. Remember, Google pays Apple right now to include Chrome in its offerings. Not only will that check not have to stop, but Apple won't have to turn around and give $200 billion to somebody else. The catalyst for Cramer's analysis was a decision on Tuesday by the U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta. We talked about that a little bit. While the judge previously found that Google held an illegal search monopoly, he rejected the Department of Justice's call to force a breakup of the company. The ruling sent Alphabet shares up 6.7% and Apple up 2.9%. Both of those stocks were actually higher this morning. Cramer dismissed recent negative stories about AI talent departing Apple as plants, suggesting they were irrelevant now that the company has a clear path to monetize its platform through an AI partnership turning a massive perceived cost into a significant new revenue stream. Wedbush analyst Dan Ives, called the decision, quote, a huge win, end quote, for Google and Apple, adding that it removes a major overhang for both companies. Good news for big tech. The regulator's bark is bigger than the bite, said Gene Munster of Deepwater Asset Management. Shots fired right there. Noting that Apple's lucrative Google search deal, estimated to account for 15% of Apple's operating income, has survived. That's why you're seeing Apple trade up here today. Investment advisor Ross Gerber echoed the sentiment, posting on X, Google gets off with a slap on the hand and the stock roars higher. Love it. But it's not all fun and games out there. We got to have some of the negative, right? We got to have the angry, shakes fist at sky, folks. Senator Elizabeth Warren criticized the court's decision, arguing that the Donald Trump administration should appeal to break up the big tech giant. In a post on X, she also raised concerns about separate negotiations between Google, YouTube executives, and Trump's legal team over a long-standing censorship lawsuit, calling the talks, quote, dubious, end quote, and a sign of, quote, corruption in plain sight, end quote. Of course, she offered nothing to support that. She's just throwing daggers around because that's what she does. Last month, several senators, including Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders, sent a letter to Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai and YouTube CEO Neil Mohan asking if settlement discussions with Trump's lawyers involved promises of favorable treatment. Here's what I have for Elizabeth Warren. That's what I got.